Good afternoon, everyone, from wherever you're joining us today. Welcome to this session on universal acceptance and email address internationalization, a concept that today we look at in depth by our panelists, both from ICANOG and the community. So in our agenda today, we'll have Mohammed from ICANN giving us an introduction, an overview on universal acceptance and email address internationalization. And then we'll have Mr. Lucky Masilela, who is the CEO from ZACR, giving us also a presentation on new GTLDs and universal acceptance. And then we'll have Engineer Galila from NTRA, who will also talk in depth about email address internationalization implementation experiences, kind of case studies that he has been able to preside over. This is a topic of great importance to the community, and it speaks directly to, having the internet be available to everyone, especially in our case in Africa. And this being kind of the first part of workshop series ahead of the Africa IGF Forum happening virtually. So we want to warmly welcome you to this session and hope that it will be as interactive as possible. We'll be joined also with other colleagues from ICANN. I already see Yaovi also in the room. So please, we want to encourage you to ask as many questions as possible as we go along through the presentations. If there are acronyms that you need clarity around, please raise your hand or type in the chat, and I'll be able to read your questions to the panelists as the presentations progress. So with that, I want to hand it over to Mohammed to kick us off with the first part of the presentation. And welcome once more. Thank you very much. My name is Bob Ochieng. I'm part of the GSC Africa team, and we are your hosts today for this session. Thank you and welcome, Mohammed.
Thank you very much, Bob. I hope that you all can hear me well.
Yes, I hear you
okay.
well.
Thank you very much, Bob. And good morning, good afternoon, everyone. And I'm really glad to be with you today and talking about universal acceptance of domain names and email addresses, which is an important topic for the multilingual internet. My name is Mohammed Al-Bashir, and I'm the Universal Acceptance Program Manager within ICANN. And my job is to manage the activities of the Universal Acceptance Program. Although I'm currently in the United States, but I'm originally from Sudan. And on the background, you can see this is my hometown city, Khartoum. And if you remember, that's it was the host for the African IGF 2018. I hope that this session will be interactive. Myself and Abdel Munaim, who will handle the technical part regarding universal acceptance. I hope that we can answer all your questions. So let's start by defining what is universal acceptance. The internet domain name system, or basically the phone book of the internet, have changed dramatically since the last decade. From the legacy few handful TLDs, the COMS, the NET, the org, the EDU, to more than 1,200 top-level domains currently on the route. And those top-level domains bring a huge diversity to the internet addressing system. Linguistically, for the first time, we have in the internet evolution, we have domain names in different scripts, from Arabic to Cyrillic, to Chinese, to the different Indian languages. And we have also longer TLDs now. We don't have It's not just a legacy 3-character TLDs. We have TLDs that could exceed, I mean, some of them exceeding eight characters, like .engineering, for example. And we have special TLDs like .Africa, for example, which represent the continent of Africa, like .Asia, like cities like Cape Town in Africa, and Joburg and others. So the universal acceptance is the concept that all those uh, top level domains and email associated with them should be accepted by all softwares, regardless of the type of TLD or the language of that TLD or the length of characters of that TLD. And so that's important, that all top level domains should be equal. And why that's important? Because this is ensure that we have a diverse internet. We ensure that we have internet end users. They have choice. They're able to register the domain names that they want and create the email addresses that they like in different languages or in different string lengths. And it also ensure that there's competition as well and options to the end users. Why this is especially important for us in Africa? If we look to the current internet population and the demographic status of the internet, the internet growth is happening now in the developing world and in non-English speaking countries. And if, for example, if we look to India, almost 70% of the Indians are not, Indian population are not non-English speakers. And India have about 780 million internet users. That's about 54% of its population. And so there is a huge growth in India for them to reach let's say the next 50% of their population to be online. Africa is the same. In Africa, we have a internet penetration of about almost 39%, and we have about 525 million internet users online, African internet users online, of about almost 1.3 billion population in the continent. So there's a huge opportunity for growth. And it's clear that the next internet users will be non-English speaking, so we don't really need to force them to use English to the internet and use the domain name system and visit the websites and use the emails that they would like to use. As well, Africa is very linguistically diverse continent. And there's about almost 2,000 spoken languages in Africa. The most widely spoken languages are Arabic in North Africa and different parts of Africa as well, East Africa, and also in West Africa. Swahili as well is widely spoken in Africa. Amharic and Hausa. Arabic and Amharic, they have their own scripts. Swahili and others, and there's many other African languages which use the Latin characters. Currently, in terms of the internet addressing system, Arabic script is well represented online, and the Amharic or Ethiopic script as well is going to be on the internet root soon. The root zone LGR have the last work has been finalized for the Ethiopic script. So this is important starting point and introduction, because we need to realize that the internet is very diverse and the internet users are using non-English languages and scripts widely. So that's important start. And why universal acceptance is important, and why it's important that all top level domains or the internet domain name and addresses and email addresses associated with them are treated equally. Because number one, we enable new internet users to use the internet in a friendly user experience without the need to use a different language to navigate the internet. It's also create a business opportunity for companies who want to reach out to internet users in different parts of the world and speak their languages by utilizing addressing or domain names that's on those languages. It's also is important for governments and policymakers because government could reach to its citizens using the language that they prefer to reach out to them. So you can see there's lots of advantages of using internationalized domain names or internationalized email addresses in different languages to reach out to internet users widely. So this diagram will give you an idea about the expansion that happened on the internet domain name system. So if you can see on the left-hand side, uh, before 2009, we have the legacy top-level domains, the 22 top-level domains, which is our, as I said, the comsnet, the org, the edu, and .info, for example. And then we have, and those called the generic top-level domains. Uh, those are the available top-level domains for anyone in the world to register. And then we have the country code top-level domains, which is our the two-character representation of countries. The .ke for Kenya, or SD for Sudan, or EG for Egypt, or ZA for South Africa. And after 2009, there was a new TLDs introduced to the internet route. It was called the Internationalized Domain Names, or IDNs. CCTLD, why? Because the registries of the different countries that use different languages and scripts non-English have applied to ICANN to get their country names in those different languages. And interestingly, I mean, I think it's good information for everyone to know that some of the early launched IDNC still these were in Africa. Masr and which is Egypt in Arabic was one of the I think the first IDNC still the launched. The second was the Russian IDNC still the for Russia in Cyrillic. So Africa was always the forefront in terms of using IDNs. Then after 2013 and the launch of the new GTLD program, the internet had expanded greatly. For the first time, there were generic top-level domains. You can, I mean, different options there, like .car, .sky, .club. Many generic words are used in the internet route. And when we have the .africa, it was also launched as representing the African continent. While also with the launch of the new GTLD program, there was launch for IDN GTLDs as well. So we have generic TLDs in different languages launched as well. So you can see that we have diversity in languages, and we have diversity in terms of the length of the TLD now, from short to long TLDs that exist now on the internet route. So what are the main affected categories, or what is the effect of the introduction of or the expansion of the TLDs? That's affect two main, let's say, important components. One is the domain names that we use. Then currently we are using new short TLDs like .sky, .site, and others, and longer TLDs like .africa or .engineering or .photography. So we have different options to choose from. And we have internationalized domain names, which is basically domain names in different languages, as I indicated. Within those domain names, there's email addresses associated with it. And now we have internationalized email addresses, or the new term EAI. EAI basically is email addresses in different scripts or different languages. And those could be basically um, ASCII characters at the email part. If you can see the second, let's say, example, Bob at societe.africa, and we can see here that we have the E letter with the accent. So basically, we can have new characters even in the Latin scripts representing different languages, like French, for example, and others. And you can see as well at the last example, we have an Arabic email address. And so basically now we have domain names in different languages. Domain names are in different lengths, longer TLDs, longer domain names, and we have email addresses in the different languages uh, and the different domain names as well. So so back to Africa. Um, um, Arabic script has been widely definitely used in the DNS, and there is especially in North Africa, Arabic-speaking countries have applied to get their own CCTLDs in Arabic script. For example, now we have about 12 CCTLDs, IDN CCTLDs in the root. And here in the examples, you can see that dot Tunis for Tunisia, dot Al Maghrib for Morocco, dot Masr for Egypt, dot Mauritania, dot Sudan, and dot Al Jazair for Algeria. Those are operational IDN CCTLDs in the internet root. And we have also African generic top-level domains. Like brands like MTN are operational and have their own TLD on the internet route. And we have the cities as well, like Durban and Joburg for Johannesburg, and we have Cape Town and South Africa as well. So if we look to in terms of the global use or the status of the different scripts used in the TLDs, we can see that Arabic script is on top. It's a second used script in top level domains in the internet root, and there's about 33 delegated top level domains using Arabic script. 21 represent country codes, and 12 represent uh, generic top level domains. And you can see the different scripts here. For example, Cyrillic is used by the Russian language, and you can see there's 17 GTLDs here. So this change has happened in terms of in terms of the internet addressing system and the DNS. There is now uh, new domains that's diverse, and we have new email addresses that's internationalized. I think the question will be: are those new resources in use? And we can say yes, they have been in use for a long time, um, and we are seeing uptake now for their use. This example that you can see in front of you is an Arabic domain name. Is Saha.Masr, basically health.Egypt, and this is the Ministry of Health website, and you can see that. And it seems this is focusing on this is COVID-19 web page. So you can see that there is a use of IDNs and the new the TLDs as well to communicate to citizens in their native languages. This is another example from India as well. India's drivers and vehicle licensing agencies called Tharata. They have launched their own website in Devangari script, and basically they're using that. And you can see that the language here, and so this is a way that effective way for communicating to the citizens, especially if they're non-English speakers. And the same, by the way, applies to email addresses. There is operational email addresses in different languages currently working in different parts of the world. Russia, for example, they have huge number of IDN registrations and also email services. India as well, Thailand, and other countries as well. So why universal acceptance is important, because we want the internet users to have a seamless internet use experience and browsing experience, um, wherever, regardless to which domain and email addresses they use. So, for example, if a user typed a website of a bank in Arabic, or it have, let's say, it's in French, it have special characters in French. The browser that's used to access this website should accept the domain name and display the domain name in the form, the original form that the user could identify it in their own language. And that's important, because otherwise, technically, that identification will be translated into a different language. As well, when someone is using Arabic language in a social media website and they type um, a domain name in Arabic, for example, that domain name should be linkable and treated as a domain name. So it's important that softwares accept um, all domain names and email addresses. They're able to validate it. They're able to process it. For example, if you log into a social media website, you can use your own internationalized email address or domain name to log in, and they're able to restore those resources and also display it properly. So that's important. Regarding the status of universal acceptance, we did publish the universal acceptance readiness report in this year, and I think in a nutshell, one of the main issues that's currently we're facing is the lack of acceptance for internationalized email addresses. And so basically, a part of, I mean, the outcome of research was done recently. Only 9.7% of email servers are configured to support different languages and scripts. So that means less than 10% of the global email servers, I mean, servers, they're not configured to or enable EAI to work. Only 11% of the well-known global websites support email addresses in Arabic and Chinese. And so, and if we look to compare that to a percentage of 98% of those same websites, let's say the 1,000 global known website support new short top-level domains like .x sky, for example, the example we showed earlier. So .Africa, for example, because it's a longer TLD, it might have acceptance issues. And any TLD that's, let's say, not the shorter or the well-known ones, they might have universal acceptance issues. This is basically the figures I was talking about. Arabic email addresses and Chinese email addresses have acceptance of about less than 10%. And we can see it here, the percentage increase when there is a use of ASCII domain name and in the domain name side. So if there's a Chinese ad, Chinese name ad, an ASCII domain name, it will have a greater acceptance, but still a small percentages as well. Compared to the new short TLDs, they are well accepted globally. So basically here also we can see that here this is the 9%. So basically all email servers, they're just about 9% are configured to accept internationalized email addresses. There's big changes in the technology adoption of AI. We're seeing more mail system providers supporting AI, from Microsoft to Google to open source email systems as well. And I think it's here in this graphs, Postfix, although they and XM, although they support AI, but it's not a default setting, so you need to enable it, and it seems that's the main reason why do not have higher percentage here. I'll leave this details to Abdel Munem, but the email technology stack is very complicated. In order for a person to send an email to another receiver, it goes through different servers on the way, and all the servers in that path of email exchange need to support AI uh, uh, for the messages to be received to the other end. Some of the good examples of use of internationalized email addresses are the government use of those services. For example, in India, the government of Rajasthan has started a service to provide free email addresses to its citizens in Hindi and English. It's called Raja Mail, and basically they're using this service to communicate to their citizens. In Thailand as well, the government have, through the CCTLD of Thailand, THNIC, they already engaged in testing and providing testing services and encouraging the ISPs in that country to use email addresses. Universal acceptance is important, but it's also a complicated issue because it's not just browser and email services. We need to make sure that social media applications, search engines, programming languages, and platforms and standards, they all accept the new the TLDs, or they also accept the internationalized domain names and email addresses. So there's lots of changes need to be done, or at least those softwares and applications need to accept email addresses and internationalized domain names. We're trying now to speed up this process of fixing the problem, and we call it the remediation process. So basically, we start by identifying the technology that we need to evaluate. And I give you an example here. For example, content management systems. And content management systems are the system that's used in building websites, like WordPress, for example. So we thought that this is an important piece of software and application that's used widely by people to build sites. So we have defined the statement of work and requesting contractors to evaluate the universal acceptance readiness of WordPress. And after this project is complete, and we're going to develop either training materials or reach out to WordPress as an example of a technology provider to support them to fix the problem and basically accept EAI or internationalized domain names. So currently within the ICANN community, different uh, groups and constituencies within ICANN community are uh, doing work on universal acceptance. The at-large advisory committee or ALAC, they have their own IDN and universal acceptance working group. The government advisory committee or GAC, they also have a working group for IDN and universal acceptance. And we have a community for universal acceptance represented by the Universal Acceptance Steering Group, or USG, whereas Abdel Munam is one of the ambassadors of the USG. The USG has different working groups working on fixing issues and identifying problems to be fixed. There is, as I said, several working groups, and I encourage you really to go to the website uasg.tech, where you can fill a form to join the different working groups. So, the technology working group is working with tech enablers and trying to identify the technology problems to be resolved. So that's why it work with tech developers and try to identify and publish reports related to those two important stakeholders. Email address internationalization working group is basically focused on EAI and how to resolve issues of EAI and advance its acceptance. The measurement working group, it's a working group that's actually across the different stakeholders, because its main task is to identify the technology gap and starting research projects for it. Communication working group is ensuring that we're communicating to all stakeholders. And recently, we launched the local initiative working group, which is basically initiatives in different countries or regions of the world to support universal acceptance. And universal acceptance ambassadors working group is basically the group of ambassadors who are uh, the internet experts from different parts of the world who are supporting universal acceptance and promoting it and conducting training. Um, the universal acceptance, in order really for us to reach out to the different parts of the world and talk to developers or governments or the internet service providers, we cannot do that uh, alone as ICANN community or ICANN as an organization. So we need to build relationships and partnership with organizations in the different countries or regionally. This is where the idea of the local initiative started, basically to partner with organizations in different parts of the world, so they can work in their own countries to provide training or raise awareness about universal acceptance. And currently, we have about four established local initiatives. The first one is the regional initiative called Eastern Europe and the Commonwealth of Independent States, which consists of 7 countries. That's Armenia, Belarus, and Georgia, Latvia, Russia, and Serbia, and Ukraine. And basically, you can see that their focus is using the Cyrillic script in the internet domain name and email addresses. India also, we have an active local initiative in India. China, we have a very active as well local initiative in the local internet community, and Thailand as well recently with uh, did establish its local internet initiative. We're aiming as well to establish a regional initiative in the Arab world, and hopefully in Africa as well. We can start national and regional universal acceptance initiatives. And if you interested really to establish an initiative either in your country or help establishing the African Universal Acceptance Initiative, you can go to our website usg.tech. There is a template for a local initiative charter. You can go through it, and it outlines the requirement for the local initiative. And hopefully, we can have more of initiative established in Africa. The Ambassadors Program quickly is a program that we have experts from different countries who are talking and promoting universal acceptance, and we are really glad to have about many, I think, members or ambassadors from Africa. We have Abdel Munib, who will be talking to you today from Egypt. Abdul Rahim Jalil from Egypt. We have Abdul Karim from Nigeria. We have Malik Al Sani from Benin. I think Malik is on this session as well, and Mark Alkins from South Africa. And so, and I really encourage you to visit the universalacceptance.tech website, and you can review the UA Readiness the 2020 report. It have very good insights and statistics about the problem, and also about the work that's been done to address this problem. We are also interested to work in collaboration with governments, because governments could really help in advancing the universal acceptance by different options. We have different options. One of them, that if governments start using internationalized domain names, that will help generate more demands, like the example we've seen in Egypt, and that will help as well software companies to know that they need to support universal acceptance. Ensuring also the email services are EAI ready, that's important. One of the important issues as well that governments could do to help in advancing universal acceptance is adopting procurement policy that have universal acceptance mentioned in it. And so basically, if the government require that their systems and IT applications are supporting all domain names and email addresses and are able to validate and accept and store and process and display them correctly, that will encourage software vendors and developers to develop softwares that's universal acceptance ready. In our website, you can find a template for a text that could be used to require universal acceptance in a procurement procedure. So lastly, we're looking for further collaboration with the African Internet community, and basically we're happy to organize universal acceptance sessions and EAI trainings as well to different stakeholders, and we encourage you to start testing EAI. And it's not difficult, by the way, to convert or ensure that your email system is EAI ready. Right? With just some effort, you can do that. And there's free services online also. You can use it to test that your email services are EAI ready. And looking forward as well to the contributions from everyone, so we can help in establishing a Pan-African multi-stakeholder universal acceptance initiative. And I will be happy and glad to answer any questions that you might have. Thank you very much. And I hand it over now to Abdel Munib.
I think, Muhammad, the second one will be Lucky, not me. Or
sorry, my apology. It's Lucky. Yes, yes.
Thank you, colleagues. Thank you, Mohammed. Disabled attendee sharing. I was hoping to share my slides. I'm trying to share my screen. Can Bob enable me whilst you are?
Yes, I think Lucky, you have been promoted to co-host now. Try again.
Yes, thank you. Yes, colleagues, thank you again. just to take you through some of our thinking. And I want to thank Mohammed for setting the tone and going into the detail on universal acceptance. I will steer my presentation more onto the UA and the names under our administration, and then probably talk briefly on some of the challenges encountered when we adopted these new names, your Cape Town, Durban, and Joburg in 2014, including Africa, except the fact that Africa, oh no, except that Africa was delayed uh, and was only delegated in 2017. So most of the challenges on these GTLDs were encountered between 2014 and 2015. And when Africa came in 2017, substantial issues around universal acceptance would have been addressed by then. So I thought I would talk to this, but Mohammed having done justice to this, I'll just go into the Africa and universal acceptance, the year of transition, whereby we saw the uptake and the uncertainty, and there was a general uncertainty on the name. When you mentioned a name like registry.africa or Mohammed.africa, people would stop and stare at you and say, is that all? Is there no other .com after this? So we were tasked now to ensure that no, it ends at .africa. You don't have to add a .com after .africa. And this is pretty much what we saw as a challenge from your traditional view. The average person in the street that your registrar would be dealing with understands a certain sequencing, a certain structure, a certain number of characters in a top level domain. They do not understand anything beyond 3 characters. And that was posing this issue of ensuring that awareness, education needs to be introduced. And then the other discussion that came in is, was the uptake of .africa impacted by the general fact that we don't have Africa in other scripts, in other languages, in French, for example, and in Arabic. Is that an inhibitor for us to be able to expand further? And that is still a matter, where under discussion. We haven't quite got to open that matter for further, scrutiny. But we believe it does have some merit for consideration. And then how would have the UA impacted on the general GTLD growth and the uptake across the continent? We think it does have a lot of merit. We believe that that uptake, when combined with general awareness, would improve significantly. We are currently sitting at around 27,000 names, and we think we should be approaching the 30,000 quite easily. When we'll only celebrate or start celebrating when we achieve 30,000. And of course, some of the things around the African universal acceptance is engaging at a continental level. It's having a discussion. It's having our policymakers, it's having our IT practitioners to participate and ensure that in their settings, they allow for additional characters. They are not only allowing for your top level domains limited to a maximum of 3 characters, but to open up to further characters. Now something is stuck. Okay. Now, one of the things that we would like to see happening having said that discussion is that we would want to see this registrar market share change. Our registrars are seen as the channel partners, and they are the ones who become those custodians that interact directly with the end users. And a collaboration with such entities becomes very critical. And for us to empower our registrars, you could see the registrar spread for the South African namespace. It's still quite small and it needs to grow. And we believe the growth of these channel partners will equally impact on the growth of universal acceptance broadly. Registry equally. The registry market is not that big for our segment, but we believe that if we can have that also impacted upon, would result in something that we would like to see. Some of the thoughts that we have been pondering around, having asked some questions, is we need to see ourselves as a catalyst that is creating this awareness across the continent, engaging and working with your IT practitioners. We need to be ambassadors for this campaign of universal acceptance. We need to ensure that our service providers, which is our channel partners, are onboarded in this campaign. I do not believe that we can do this alone. The other area that we believe needs to be discussed or taken to consideration is the Africa Union Commission, this technical committee. The technical committee, it starts off with your director generals or your secretary or principal secretaries from the different countries. And they are the ones who come up with technical architecture of whatever solution that needs to be brought forth. And this is then presented to ministers. And then from the ministers, it is then presented to the heads of state. I believe that if we can find space to engage with this technical committee at the Africa Union Commission, we should be able to create broader awareness across the continent and becoming these active ambassadors. And I'm glad that we have ambassadors on the continent, and to have one person is a good start, but to have more, to have 10, 15, and 100 ambassadors would even be more effective in the long term. And we are looking also in launching a targeted digital marketing campaign for this program on digital, on universal acceptance. The next steps really are more the last item for us is we would like to already at the next sitting of the heads of state, even the ministers, which is early in 2021, to have a discussion at the AUC level. And I was hoping to see Mokhtar online, but I will be engaging with him because Mokhtar has always been this ambassador, this linkage with us to the Africa Union. And a person like him is very important. And for us, what we have seen, the universal acceptance, its success as the next steps is we need entities like your Absa.Africa. When Absa.Africa launched the name .Africa, and they went out on a campaign ensuring all their service providers are aware of this extension .Africa, and that they have to be ready to accept that extension. That on its own, it changed quite a few things. I recall in the year 2015, you would encounter problems if you were entering an email address when you rented a vehicle at Avis, and you entered avis.africa, this thing would reject it, would say, we don't know what is this, incorrect address. But when ABSA came in as a bank, they ensured that all their clients, all their service providers are informed about this. That was a game changer, and we need more players of the size and stature of ABSA to convert and to change and ensure that there are more participants. Needless to say, the support and working together with ICANN becomes very critical. And we need to talk more about this, what we call domains in the wild. We need to celebrate what we saw just the other week, Nation.Africa in Nairobi, and the newspaper, when it adopted .Africa as its own new extension. And there was big celebration. And such celebrations are equally important indirectly in creating this universal awareness, acceptance. And this is very important for us to piggyback on such events. When companies adopt .Africa as their own name, we use that to create awareness across the continent. And of course, ABSA equally, they had over 100 drones flying over Braamfontein, just celebrating the launch of this extension .Africa, including it into their comms. So on that note, I want to thank you again, and I will hand back to the Master of Ceremonies. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Lucky. I think that was quite precise and short. We do have a question by Joe, but I would read it once Engineer Galila's presentation is done. So Galila, over to you. If we could try do it in another 20 minutes. Thank you.
Yeah, this is Abdelmanan Galila. I am Universal Acceptance Ambassador for the third year and the manager of Masr IDN System of Egypt and system engineer, senior system engineer for numbering affairs at the telecom regulator of Egypt. Today's agenda for my presentation will start by a short introduction about .Masr, and behind the scene, I would like to take about some consideration about the decision for AI deployment. Do we need email address internationalization at the moment or not? Why we need AI? And then go to email system, how it works, the email infrastructure, the protocols, and how to adopt this infrastructure and the protocols and softwares to accommodate email address internationalization and support this type of email addresses, how to deploy email address environment, the softwares, the utilities, debugging tools, and finally, I will go to demo screenshot of the demo for Arabic email address and French email address and ASCII email address that use new long generic top-level domain name TLD, and will open, after this, I will open the floor for the question and will release the floors to Bob. Let's go for behind the scene for .mas. .mas or .masr is the Arabic word for Egypt. The CCD of Egypt, .masr, has been in the root zone since 2010. We are 3R model, registrant, registry, registrar. We have 4 registrar. We use the software called COCA. .masr zone is DNS signed. Currently, you have to ask yourself, do we need to deploy EI? During COVID, there is no one going, young students don't go to schools, don't go to faculties, so they need to use Arabic email address or whatever unique, their own local language email address to subscribe for e-learning environment and receive notification for new courses, and other side receive vaccination reminders, other side receive traffic violation tickets at your mobile at your mobile through your email, whatever this email it is, whatever the language of this email. And also there is a digital transformation project. All the government are going in this way in order to make all the applications that offer services for public to be fully digital and make it automated. So of course, I wanted to access the local content, local language content website. I wanted to use my own local language and use my own local language as well to send and receive email and send and receive notification from the government through my email, whatever the language, and receive my bills through my email. That is the time we need EAI. Before deploying AI environment, you have to consider some points. For the first point, hardware resources, the same for ASCII email system, email environment. Software application may be the same, but you have to select the software applications that support this new type of email addresses. The issue for email admins, the same administration for ASCII is the same for EI, with some limited difference due to the changes from storing the mail at file. Now we have to store the mail at database, as we have now virtual users for EI environment. We have some technical considerations that I will cover this during the end of my presentation. Let's go first to introduce what is the component of the email system and how it works. This is actually all the system, starting by the end user, maybe this end user, me, you, and others. I wanted to send an email to other side. Maybe this email, the other side may be within my own domain name or whatever outside my own domain name. So I will open the application. For example, the webmail or the application that like Outlook, like Thunderbird, like somehow something like this, and open and click compose. I want to send an email. I will add the email address as a to field. This email address may be whatever it is ASCII, whatever the language. Now let's consider the ASCII one for the normal use. This once I click send, the data will be transmitted to the mail server, will be validated, and the mail server will check it is within the same domain name, my own domain name or whatever. If it is the same domain name, it will not go outside. It will deliver the message to the other mailbox within the same domain name. If it's outside, he will have to ask the DNS what are the mail servers for this domain name. This DNS will reply to the mail server that you have to consider these mail servers according to priority of this mail server. The mail server will select the proper one with high priority and deliver the message to the other side. Let's go for what the DNS reply to the mail server. The DNS reply to the mail server was DNS records called MX. With this MX, there is numbers, for example, MX10, MX10, MX20, this number called the priority. The lower this number, the higher the priority. It means when I ask the DNS, what is the mail server for example, for example.com? So the lower one will be delivered to me. You have to select server 1 or server 2. This is high priority. If server 1 and server 2 is offline, the DNS will give to me server 3. So the server 3 will I ask DNS again, get me the IP address of server 3 to example.com. Once I have the IP address, I will ask the server to please have this message to this mailbox. Let's go to some terminologies with the mail environment. We have the email client, the webmail, it is called MUA. It is client software. We have mail transport agent. This mail transport agent, actually it is a server application that receives a message from another component called MSA, Mail Submission Agent. Mail Submission Agent have the message from the mail client, verify this message, and deliver it to the MTA. It is verified and it's okay. The MTA will have the responsibility to deliver the message to the other side, whatever the side is, local or outside my domain name. So there is another term called also MDA, Mail Delivery Agent. It is responsible for fetching the message that I received from MTA and deliver it to my mailbox. Let us go to have this component inside this diagram. We have here the client, it is MUA, the mail server have MTA and MDA. There is another component I talked about, which is MSA. MSA could be packaged inside MDA, like this. MSA, mail submission agent is, with MTA. Mail delivery agent, there is another word called mail retriever agent, is responsible for retrieving or fetching the email from from remote mail server and work with MDA to deliver the message to the local mailbox or to another component, which is MUA. So MRA could be bundled with MDA and could be bundled also with MUA. Let's go to the protocols of the emails. We have two kinds of protocols. We have SMTP, Simple Mail Transfer Protocol. It is responsible to deliver the message, have the message from MUA and deliver the message to the other side, from MTA to another MTA till it reaches the other side, which is MTA, BOP3 or IMAP. BOP3, Post Office Protocol version 3, and IMAP, it is Internet Message Access Protocol, is two kinds of protocols with different in functions regards to retrieving email from a remote server. For BOP3, just pull the message from the mail server and read it from mail server and make it available for the client. So it will be available at one place. For IMAP, it is have a copy from the message from the mail server and deliver it to the MUA. So whatever you are going from one place to another place, from machine to another machine, you will have this message appear through the protocol IMAP. So you should be clear about this. So now we have the terminologies: MUA, MTA, MDA, MSA, MRA. Now we have protocol SMTP or BOP3 or IMAP. So we have actors of the email environment. We have end user and the administrator. The administrator, the function for administrator to manage the accounts, manage the database. For the end user, we have to register for a new, sign up for a new email address, new account, login, view email, send an email, manage my account profile, attach some file to email and send it, and compose email. So now terminology, protocols, actors. Let's go how to adopt email address internationalization option for this environment, for this component. Let's go first. I wanted to have ASCII sender to send an email to ASCII recipient. At the same time, this ASCII sender wanted to send an email correctly to EI recipient. At the same time, EI sender must send an email successfully to ASCII recipient and EI recipient. This is what we wanted to achieve from all of this environment for email address internationalization. As said by Muhammad and Lucky, that all domain names, all email addresses should be treated equally. So ASCII email addresses and the EI email addresses should be treated the same. My view, at some time we should eliminate this word EI, as all of them are emails. Now we want to adopt the protocol, we wanted to adopt email address internationalization to the protocols. For SMTP, you should select the proper software that is SMTP UTF-8 enabled. It means that SMTP server, mail server, could handle the messages received from MUA that have EI address, whatever the language of the EI address. So for POP3 and for IMAP, should accept an email that have UTF-8 local part and deliver this email that have UTF-8 local part to the correct EI address. So POP3 or IMAP should be UTF-8 enabled. Now we handle the protocol. We need to handle the MUA and MTA, and we need to handle the MUA at the moment. Before going to this, I wanted to test some tools like Telnet. I wanted to use my Arabic email address in the mail from. I wanted to send an email. So I will ask the software that used for SMTP. I wanted to use EI address in the mail from. So I asked the SMTP that I need you to propagate SMTP UTF-8. I would like to send an email to EI address. So now he accepts that. He said that it's okay. I accepted the email address in Arabic, and I already propagate SMTP UTF-8. Here for the header for the message after send to the other destination, it should be displayed in the header. He said that here we have postfix with UTF-8 SMTP, the same as SMTP 8, SMTP UTF-8, but different versions. For POP3 or IMAP, as I said, IMAP should able to accept UTF-8 local part and deliver the message to UTF-8 local part mailboxes. Here, after you turn it, all of this, I use normal tools of Linux. I turn it for Coral IMAP at the port at port 143. He said that I accept UTF-8, so I am able to accept UTF-8 and deliver the message to UTF-8 mailbox. What I should do for the mail client, MUA? MUA, the mail client itself, whatever it is application or it's with mail, should handle the mailbox in UTF-8. Also, I don't know English. I wanted to use Arabic, for example, to go to the mail server, to the mail application. So I should use IDN to open the mail application. I wanted to use my Arabic name and Arabic password to log into the application. It is consistency. This is for MUA. For protocols, we already handle it. For MTA, as I said, it should configure to support the feature of SMTP UTF-8. And maybe the message transferred from MTA to another MTA until it reaches the destination, maybe one of these MTAs in between shouldn't, maybe it is not support SMTP UTF-8. So it is recommended and good practice to have two domain names for the same email address, to have email address with different domain names, one for U label, one for A label for the domain name. What I mean by U label, I mean UTF-8 label. It's Arabic domain name. For A label, it is ASCII compatible encoding for this Arabic one. Maybe the email address will be Abdulmanem in Arabic at netra.mas. It is Arabic domain name. The other email address will be Abdulmanem in Arabic at xn the ASCII compatible is encoding for this domain name. So if you are trying, if one of the MTAs in between the sender and destination doesn't support SMTP UTF-8, the message will be downgraded from U label to A label, and the message will be delivered to the other destination successfully. Otherwise, the message will be dropped and back to the sender. It couldn't be delivered to the destination. So all the transit points, all MTAs between sender and the receiver should be SMTP UTF-8, unless otherwise you should be accept both U label and U label version of domain names in email addresses. How to deploy email address internationalization for the softwares? We have proper softwares for MUA for different parts of terminology and for protocol. For MUAs, for example, I use Roundcube. It is open source software and it's compatible with UTF-8 or compatible with virtual users. Virtual user, I mean by virtual user, that user that doesn't have any relation with the Linux user or Windows user, doesn't have any account at the operating system. Of course, if it is virtual user, it means that I will use database. This user will be stored in the database. I use a small light database called SQLite or MySQL, whatever. For MSA, MTA, and MDA, I use PostFix 3.0, 3.01. From this version, you could compile it, and it's SMTP UTF-8 enabled. For IMAP or POP3, I use Courier IMAP version 5. I use operating system, whatever operating system, whatever it is, but I used Ubuntu 19 and upgraded now to Ubuntu 20. Operating system utilities, I use Telnet and Dig. It is working well for me. But at some time, for Mac operating system, it is better to use Telnet and Dig. For Windows operating system, maybe some Arabic word doesn't display it correctly. So it is preferable to use Mac for digging or Telnet for this kind of email address or domain names. But if it is RTL script, in Arabic script, there is some point should be considered. Minimum and maximum length of the mailbox. Script mixing. Let's go to the second part. This is orange and screen and this green ovals here. We have the Arabic email address, completely Arabic email address for the local part and for the domain part. It is okay. If I am using Arabic for mailbox and English for the ASCII, it is a big problem to have mixing between ASCII and Arabic, or in general to mix between RTL and left to right within the same email address for the two parts. For example, where is the question mark in the orange one? Could you decide which part is the domain part and which part is the mailbox? You can't. If I am Arabic guy, I will read it from right to left. If you are English guy, you will read it from left to right. So right to left, I will consider the mailbox is the Arabic one and the domain name is Yasin.Galila. From left to right, I will consider the mailbox Yasin.Galila and the mailbox Abdelmanam.Galila, the Arabic one. So it will make a big conflict for the end users and for the application. Maybe the application will read it from left. Maybe the application read it from right. It's a big problem. So it's recommended not to mix LTR and RTL within the email address. And try to avoid as much possible the confusability regards to homograph and variances. For example, we have one letter, we have thousands of variances for the same letter. So you should consider one of them to be used. Or if, for example, for .masr, for example, sorry, we have this issue for .masr. We have domain names that have a lot of variances. So everyone, if anyone try to have a domain, to buy a domain name that have variances, that have a letter that have variances will bundle the other domain names for free with this email, with this domain name. For email address, you should consider this as well. Should consider variances, as it may be somehow security attack, homograph attack. Maybe you another one will buy another domain name that have the other variant that looks like this the letter I sold before, and send and receive message on behalf of the other guy, and I am not the authorized person to do this. So you should consider variances for the local and for this domain name and for the domain name. So there is another methodology used by the engine of the Indian engine, Xgen, which is good from my point of view. They uses, for example, Arabic email address, and at same time you create Arabic email address at their system, they will offer you another ASCII email address. Why? Maybe you are trying to send an email address to other destinations that is not SMTP UTF-8 enabled. So at this time, the mail engine will rely on the ASCII email address, not the EI address. If the destination is EI enabled, the message will be delivered using the EI address. This is some kind to overcome the issue of using U label and A label for the same domain name to be away from the message dropped between MTAs and the MTA from the sender and destination. Let's go for the demo for the application for MUA and the MDA and the other side. I don't include, I think I will have some of configuration here. Here I use the Arabic domain name to access the round cube, the MUA. I use my Arabic username to log into the application. This is my email address. It's pure Arabic one. I wanted to send an email address to the French one that have umlaut above the E here. The message here recorded at send items at the Arabic email address. And if I log into the French email address, it is already here from the Arabic one. So now I send an email address from the Arabic email address to the French one. Now I wanted to send an email address from the French email address to the Arabic email address. So I received the message from the French email address. Now I wanted to consider the ASCII email address that have long TLD, like email. I wanted to send an email from this new long TLD email address to Arabic email address and French email address and see how it works. Now at Arabic email address, I received an email address from the new long GTLD email address, and the French, it's okay. There are another resources for RFCs. You can have a look about it. For framework for internationalized email, it's important to consider this, to read this and have overview about what's the point inside this framework. For SMTP, for the header, for the delivery status and notifications. For IMAP, you can go for Courier website and have a lot of information through the README file published online. If you want to have the training labs or how to deploy EI environment, I already made a lot of the training labs. So you just send me an email, I will deliver it to you. There are some mail software and services for EI support, EI mail client for iOS 14. It is support now for EI addresses. It is tested for Indian, and I think it is for Thailand. And for Arabic, I have some issues with iOS 14. For postfix minimum version 3.0, you should compile it at this version, you should compile it and run. And after this version, you could install it from day one. It is SMTP UTF-8 enabled. For Core IMAP, I consider IMAP version 5.08, which is EI enabled, which is virtual user compatible enable. AI not supported, as I know, till October 2019 for DevCode, whatever IMAP or POP3, Zimbra, Mozilla Thunderbird. Services like supporting AI like Gmail and Outlook by example, Microsoft Exchange 2019, from this version, it support EAI. You could check your email server if it is EI enabled or not. You can go to usg.tech website and check if your mail server is AI enabled or not. And we could help you in order to make enabling for AI at your side, maybe through changing your mail server, the type of SMTP, type of color map, or enable this at your site, maybe something like this. At the conclusion that EI means UTF-8 at the local part of the email address. For the domain part, which is already localized for using IDN, all SMTP server in the path from the source to the destination should be EI enabled unless the message will be dropped, or you have to another work. See, there is another two workarounds. The first one, as I said, considering EU label and the A label. The other one, to have an alias for the EI address, which is ASCII email address, to use this ASCII email address whenever the destination is not SMTP UTF-8 enabled. Courier and the postfix are two open sources that support EI. For resources, you could go for usg.tech. You could have a lot. It is a huge repository that have a lot of information regards to EI technical consideration, EU readiness. You could also go to ican.org for universal acceptance. For IDN, maybe at the same time at ICANN. There is also a new published document for internationalized mailboxes considerations, USG 028. This is for email administrators, so you can have a specific idea what you should follow and what it shouldn't be being following for this for the administration for the mailboxes. I think this is covered already by Mohammed. This is our website, https usg.tech. Asterisk means anything. Universal acceptance, I want to make you sure that universal acceptance doesn't care only about IDN or EAI, but also for new generic top-level domain name. Whatever this new generic top-level domain name is, new short, is new long, IDN or ASCII, whatever. Another word that universal acceptance also doesn't care only about applications, but also there is firewalls. These firewalls, if this firewall is not adopted to allow you to open, for example, usg.tech, you can't open it from your network behind this firewall. Anti-spam engine should be considered. There is also another softwares that you could use for as anti-spam, like OpenDMARC. I don't want to talk too much about technicality. I will move the floor now to Bob. Sorry, maybe I have more time. Thank you. The floor is yours, Bob, now.
Thank you very much, Engineer Galela. Actually, our time is already 4 minutes over. Tells you how fast time moves on a topic like this. But thank you very much for the presentations from all our panelists. And unfortunately, because of our time, I would just probably give 1 minute each to both Mohammed, then Lucky to give final remarks. Then I'll ask Pierre, if possible, to probably close our session with just his final comments as the VP for GSC Africa. So Mohammed, just in 1 minute, if you can, and if our secretariat allows, if you could also respond to a question here that was also asked by Joe on what is the role of CCTLDs in advancing the UA agenda. In 1 minute, please, as part of your closing remarks. Over to
Sure.
you.
Thank you, Bob. The role of CCAZ is important because they work with registrars who are able definitely to promote universal acceptance. They have links to ISPs and software developers and tech community to talk to them and raise awareness about universal acceptance. So yes, a CCTLD registry have an important role to play in raising awareness about universal acceptance, or even helping to support email address internationalization, as Abdel Munaim demonstrated. Abdel Munaim is part of it, still the registry. Last remarks, I encourage everyone really to go to the website usg.tech and engage with your local internet community in the topic. Engage with us, join our working groups. In the website, you will find the form to join different working groups. Join, listen to the discussion, read more about the topic, and hopefully the next step could be we can work together to establish either the Pan-African Universal Acceptance Initiative or an initiative in your country. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mohammed. Lucky, a final remark on this is, I know you have a meeting in 20 minutes.
Thank you, and thank you, colleagues, and the questions. I think the practical aspect of making sure that universal acceptance is globally recognized is to engage more stakeholders, is to make sure that from the CCTLD point of view, there are more participants, is to make sure that the proposals that I have raised, at least we can test them at the continental level, so that an entity like the African Union Commission, particularly the Commission of Infrastructure and Energy, is mobilized to be part of this campaign. And I think we should then be winning as a continent to make sure that universal acceptance becomes a norm across our globe. I again want to thank the panel, my colleagues here, for explaining succinctly what is needed, and now we just need to get the tire to hit the road. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Lucky, for your remarks. Let me now call upon Pierre to close the session with a few remarks. Pierre, if you can, please, you're welcome.
Hello?
Yes, we can hear you.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Well, thank you very much, Bob. Thought I was not on your agenda, but you saw me. No, I just wanted to thank everyone that we are trying to advocate, of course, for the universal acceptance. And also we see it as a way of much more inclusion, of Africa. So definitely, I would like to thank our colleagues, who made the presentation, and I would like to thank all those who attended, and hopefully we will be, as our good friend Lucky just said, now let's get on the work. Let's develop our initiative, local initiatives, and let's make sure that we are really moving ahead. And with that, thank again for all, and stay, how should I say, take care of yourself, and bye for now.
Thank you very much, and bye everyone, and our special thanks to our Secretariat of the Africa IGF. Thank you very much, and bye for now.
Thank you very much. Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you, bye. Sasa, I mean, akafuna upendo.